Persona 5 the P5X gives you a lot of persona to choose from, but doesn't really expand or fully explain how they work or should work. Wonder's biggest strength is the flexibility in the persona that you can use, and is honestly one of the most fun systems in the game. Finding the best persona to fit your team, or choosing a persona that you like and building around it. That being said, a lot of persona are pretty much useless and or using the tier 1 and tier 2 personas. For example, depending on how you play and how the gacha system treated you, you might not need to use them at all. So while I could and will have a quote-unquote best persona list, hopefully by the end of the first section of the video, you'll be able to understand and find persona that will be useful for your playstyle. So first things first, how do we get persona? We get them primarily from our metaverse, while occasionally dropping some after defeating enemies, from palaces or mementos. You want to unlock all persona whether you plan on using them or not, since unlocking them will grant you resources to make Wonder stronger. Secondly, you can buy this persona if they are required for a fusion or if they have a skill you'd like to pass on to another persona. As a rule of thumb, you'd only want to invest in persona and any other resource for that matter once you come across a wall that you find yourself hitting your head on one too many times. Now once you start unlocking personas or personas with good skills that you'd want to teach, things can get a little overwhelming. What's important is knowing what each persona does and if it will help you with the issue that you are having. If you are new to this, then using a filter will be a good beginner choice. You can sort between assassins, which are single target, your sweepers, which are AoE, medics, which are healing, obviously, guardians, which are your tanks, your strategists, which are your buffers, and your saboteurs, which are your debuffers. Just know that in a lot of cases, you'll be using a persona from one tree and teaching them skills from the other trees. But this isn't a build a persona video, so as a general guideline, this will do you just fine. Of course, the optimal way to find your ideal persona is to look at their overclock or passive skill. Whilst their skills are important, as well as their weaknesses and their stats to a lesser degree, the place you want to start is with their passive skills. Having, for example, Huapo on a fire team with On, while sharing assassin and fire traits with Jack-o'-lantern, your game plan is going to change thanks to their passive. For example, with Jack-o'-lantern you can use your gun to get it down, and this will grant you the fire buff, whereas Huapo really needs the burn. As you proceed through the game, or more importantly, once you get other characters, you want to start gradually turning and focusing on making Wonder someone who fills whatever hole you're stuck in. This means looking for a persona that can affect your whole team or main DPS, or a persona that can weaken the enemies. Even if you don't have a persona who can hit an enemy's weakness, unless you are in Velvet Trials or Guild Trials, where weaknesses grant bonus points, using a persona to boost your main DPS damage, paired with skills like Racunda or Elemental Break if they are resistant. These are very viable ways of dealing with these issues, while less popular, spiritual ailments are also a fun way of cheesing enemies that are not bosses. There are also, of course, persona who benefit from your ailment accuracy, for example. So depending on your playstyle, there could be more choices than you might think. Hopefully in the future, more game modes like the Hot Rail that would require us to have more variety, or making things like the SP recovering or cost reduction stuff being more valuable, and things like spiritual ailments as well. But until then, of course, some persona are going to stand out, so let's check them out. Now for these first tiers of persona, again, I do not recommend you level any of them up, besides of course the ones that will help you get over a certain wall, or just make your experience smoother. If you have a persona of each tier that you really like and you just want to use them, your persona leveling materials, at least from my experience, are a lot more forgiving compared to the other systems. I, for example, leveled a few that I ended up not using at all and didn't get punished too much for it. But of course, you do want to save as much as you can, especially since as you go up in levels, you'll start needing the lower tier personas less and less, so that is always something to consider, of course. So for our tier 1 persona, our first pick, if we are using the On team, is obviously going to be Huapo. Yes, this doesn't exactly boost On, but Wonder in the beginning is a good enough DPS to warrant having something like this if you are interested in fire team. Way better than the Jack Frost, who requires a knockdown. Do keep in mind a lot of these skills that are somewhat vague in the wording, that don't mention teammates or stuff like that. This will basically only be for jokers, so having your teammate knock someone down will not give you fire damage. You yourself have to be the one knocking them down. And for our second team, if we are going for an ice team, I would say Andros is among the best. He does increase our attack by 2.9%, and after using a skill on a foe, increase main target's ice damage taken by 6.6%. So this will already be buffing your teammates who are doing ice damage, which is very good. We could also go for Corrupt Guru, since he does increase our attack by 2.9% and decreases damage taken from frozen foes by 20%. And do keep in mind that the frozen status effect already decreases attack by 12%, so that's another boost. For our third choice, if you're going for an ailment, I would say Mokoi in the beginning is probably the better ailment persona. He does give increased ailment accuracy and dizzy accuracy, which is his ability. and he has the boost also, so pretty much guaranteed to hit a dizzy with this guy. For a more defensive or tanky persona, I would say Genbu is among the best in the early game. He does increase defense, decreases damage taken from frozen foes by 26, and increased damage to frozen foes as well. So very solid passive actually. He does have this skill which grants you a shield, which might come in handy, and it also has a chance of inflicting frozen. He does have a party-wide defense buff, so very good early persona. Now for our ideal choice when it comes to the tier 1 persona, which is going to be Succubus, of course, mainly for the Rebellion. Crit rate is very important in this game, so especially for the early game where you cannot get much of it, you want to squeeze out as much as you can, which is also why later on a persona like Amane Uzume will also be talked about. Now, not only does she increase our attack by 3.5%, when an ally uses a skill, increase their crit rate by 11.7%, which is very good paired with Rebellion. These two will stack. And while this 3.5% is only applied to Wander, we can use this to our advantage by applying a Tarukaja, for example, which will increase one of our allies' attack for every X amount of attack that Wander has. So just because you see an increased attack that's only applied to Wander doesn't necessarily make it a bad thing. Just a little quick note before we continue. You want to be looking at this more from a Pokemon perspective type thing. Whereas you're picking a tier 1, but later on at tier 2 you'll have something that's basically the same thing and it's just an upgrade, right? Tier 3 the same, tier 4, whatever. Which is again why I said in the beginning that you don't really want to level these first tiers if you can avoid it. So just keep this idea in mind. So with this Pokemon concept in mind, I'm sort of going to rush through these ones a little bit, since the idea is pretty much the same thing. So for the ailments, we're going to have Nekomata, which will apply Windswept for decreased defense, which is very good, as well for her Hysterical Slap, which inflicts rage. She is more of the single target one, while Kodama would be your AoE with Makajama. Also having Tarukaja, which is pretty helpful. Nekomata does increase ailment accuracy and spiritual ailment accuracy. If you don't know the difference between these two, ailment accuracy is Windswept, is electricity, is fire, while the spiritual ones are the enraged, the sleep, the dizzy, that kind of stuff. Apsaras is our next choice here, though I wouldn't exactly call her an upgrade from Succubus, just because she increases defense after using a skill on ally, increase their defense. This is, I would say, less important than the attack buffs that that Succubus is giving you. She does come with the Automotaru as well, but yeah, I'd put Succubus above her. Next up, we're gonna have Orbus, mainly for the fire break. So obviously, if you have a foe that's resistant and you have a fire team, you want to use Orbus and you can break the fire, and it'll pretty much save you a little headache. That is basically the only and the main reason you'd use Orbus, is basically for the fire break. For our next pick, we have New, or Nue, or however you say his name. This is basically going to be your budget Yaoling. As much as I hate to say that. He will increase our crit rate by 4.2% when dealing curse damage, 75% chance to inflict one curse. So kind of a budget, I guess, real budget. Of course, this is mainly if you have Joker, and if you do have Joker, you probably won't even need him in the early stages. So do keep that in mind. A few honorable mentions, I guess, would be Archangel, but you do need the Merope or Merope fusion. Her Confidant leveled up, and then you can fuse this guy. He does have Dizzy Needle. He does have increased ailment accuracy 10% after using a skill, 30% chance to gain one blessing, If skill dealt bless damage, gain one more blessing. Blessing just gives you 1% HP every turn. So a very good bless unit, as well as ailment inflicting. If you are fully stacked on blessing, he does have a higher chance to inflict Dizzy Needle. Not a very necessary persona at all, but worth mentioning, I guess. As well as our next persona, Linan, or I don't know how to say her name, but she's also very good. Increased attack by 8.3% when attacking a foe, with decreased defense with a skill, bonus fire damage. A somewhat niche persona, but will be pretty helpful in the beginning, so leveling her is not exactly a bad idea. She does come with Racunda, decreased defense, and her ability also decreases defense, so pretty solid persona, I'd say. Now, for our tier 3s, we have Isis. Yeah, so she's going to be pretty much our better early on healer. Increases max HP. After healing, restore HP to the target, 4.3% of your attack for 2 turns. So this is basically a dot heal, which can be very useful. Fuki is our next choice if you are looking for a wind persona. He also has Tarukaja, which can be very helpful. Increases attack by 8.7% after defeating a foe, permanently increase wind damage. So if you're against a lot of foes, this is going to be a good persona to have. Or if you're in a battle with multiple phases. Again, do not forget that elemental ailments are always very nice, even if the enemy is not exactly weak to it. Getting a flat decrease in 12% of the opponent's defense is always very good. Of course, that's not to say that you should just build a persona just because they have an elemental ailment. But for our next fire upgrade, it's going to be Orthrus. Though this kind of depends on what you're going for. If you want to make Wander more of DPS, then Orthrus will be your choice. Increases crit damage, increases attack after inflicting burn. So good for a Wander damage. If you are looking for a more supportive, then Lamia would be a better option. Increases element accuracy. If it's for burn, it's by 35%. When the foe is burning, increases party attack by 10%. So very good persona. Though she does come with the party-wide element accuracy boost. This isn't exactly needed since her skill 1 has a double % chance of inflicting burn if the opponent doesn't have one. So very solid persona. So for our next choice, we have Jikokuten. A very, very solid persona as well. Increases defense by 15.9%. After using a skill on ally, increases main target's attack by 13.5%. If you don't know, when you're buffing, when you have party-wide buffs, a lot of skills will have a main target text to them, which means that wherever your main circle is on, when you're choosing who to buff, even though it's an AoE buff, that's the target that'll get the increase. When target's HP is below 60%, increases effect by 30%. So just as an example, let's say you have Ryuji and you also have Leo. You would use Leo's skill 2 to remove HP from Ryuji, putting him below 60%, and then you'd use Matarukaja, having Ryuji as your main target. It also comes with Defense Master, obviously. You'd want to optimize these things. You can put like more attack, Automataru for example, defense down, things like that. But I would save the optimization for level 50 plus persona only. Next up, as an honorable mention as well, we have Satanta. Again, another persona that you need from Rope. Increases crit damage. After attacking debuff foes, increase attack by 30%. If damage is dealt, increase party's attack by 10%. So pretty solid passive, I'd say. I kind of like the idea behind this guy. He also has, for each debuff on foes, increase damage by 12%, stack up to 3 times. If foes are sleeping, it's counted as 3 buffs. It's counted as 3 debuffs, sorry. So, and he does have a sleep, he has a sleep boost. Pretty cool kit. I like the idea behind him, though it's pretty, somewhat niche, I guess. I like the ideas behind this persona. Another very good mention would be Neko Shogun. Neko Shogun increases our element accuracy by 50%. At start of battle, increases party element accuracy by 9%, plus 12% to the ally with the highest element accuracy. And this might not sound too good until you read his skill 1, which increases one ally's damage by 16.2%. For every 20% of the target's element accuracy, increases damage by 0.9% more, up to 5.4. And of course, he's well paired with characters like Tomoko or your Navi like Okion, which all boost element accuracy. Up next, we have Principality, another solid persona if you just need a little bit of healing. His heal also gives you a little bit of defense, so a good 2-for-1 over there. Increases defense by 18.6%. After using healing skills, increases party's defense by 17.5%. He also comes with the party-wide defense buff, so very, very good. And his highlight will also restore HP, so if you need just a little bit extra healing, he's a very good persona to have. And for our persona that you do want to build, it's gonna be Amano Uzume. The reason for this is just because of the crit buffs that she gives. Increases element by 50%, this doesn't matter too much. When foe is shocked, increase party's crit rate by 10%, so very good, especially paired with her skill 1, which inflicts shock, and shock gives us another 10% buff to our critical. So a very solid persona to pair with Succubus, for example. You just buff your main DPS's crit rate, then you switch to Amano, and then you put shock on the target, and there you go. So a very, very, very solid persona. She even comes basically, this is all you need. These 3 skills right here, this is basically what you need. You could optimize her a little bit more if you want to. Maybe get like a defense down or something like that, whatever you really need. Otherwise, you can just leave her as is and she'll be very, very helpful. Up next for our tier 4s, we have Thoth. Though this isn't exactly someone I would want to mention. It's mostly because just Nuke is unavailable right now, pretty much. He increases crit damage, increases nuke damage on foes below 50% HP. So pretty solid if you need it for the Velvet Trials, for example, but on Velvet Trial, I want to say 18, I think it is. You might think about building him, but he is weak to Psy, which the enemies on that trial will have. So there is that. He does come with the taunt, which might help with that, inflicting rage. So, you know, it could give him a try, I guess. I just thought I'd point him out. It does also come with the Almighty, which ignores defense, so could be pretty useful, I guess. Up next, we have Jatayu, and the only reason we're exactly pointing him out is for the Windbreak, which I don't remember actually needing. I know for the Velvet Trials you might need the Electric Break or you might need the Fire Break. Of course, it's very good if you're going for a wind team, or in the event that you want just a little extra defense down and for some reason you don't have any other persona or skills to do that. He does have the, after using wind skill, decrease target's defense by 18%, so that's on top of the 12% over here, so a 30% decrease in defense is very, very good. Besides that, yeah, just the windbreak in the event that you need it. Next up, we have Mithras, a very solid upgrade from Genbu. He does come with a party-wide increase to defense. He does have increased HP. When using a skill on ally, increase the defense by 11. If HP is over 50%, increases effect by 50% as well. So pretty solid. He does have a lowish defense stat, but you can also, for example, in Wanda's skill tree, if defense and shielding is something you want to go with and be like tanky, you could invest more into the defense in the Wanda's skill tree. So yeah, very solid defense increasing persona. Of course, you could optimize the skills, adding stuff like Rakukaja or Rebellion or Rakunda, whatever it is that you might need. For our ailment, we have Mothman. Not much to say. He has a lot of ailment increasing, and he has the Forget skill, Ambient 8 and Forget boost, so solid if you're going for ailments. Up next, we have a Choppus, another persona just basically worth mentioning because of the Concentrate, which increases magic damage by 46% on the next turn, as well as using skill on self increases attack by 40%. So, but at this point, you probably already want to be transitioning Wanda to a more buffing / supporting character. But if for whatever reason you need Wanda to do a little bit more damage, this could be a good option. Belphegor is our next ice pick. He does have a pretty solid passive. After using a skill on foe, increase main target's ice damage taken by 12.9%, 2 turns. If target's HP is below 50, increase the effect by 40%. So pretty good passive here. It does come with Rakunda, which is a very good skill as well. Next up, we have Anubis, again another Merope persona to unlock him. Another very solid persona, increasing attack by 16.6%. When dealing bless damage, gain 1 or 2 blessing. When dealing curse damage, inflict 1 or 2 curses. When attacking cursed foes, increase attack by 20%, paired with deal curse damage to one foe, equal to 148% of attack. When the skill is used for each blessing stack on the user or curse stack on the target, increase damage by 10%, stacking up to 40%. So a very solid persona to pair with Joker and Rin. Next up, we have Unicorn, which I wouldn't recommend exactly leveling up. He's only useful for the removal of... this is bugged, hold on. He's only useful for the removal of debuffs. So for the second boss palace, for example, or some SOS and guild trials, you might require a debuff removal. But in the event that you have Marion, and to a lesser degree Morgana can also remove some of these. Otherwise, I wouldn't exactly recommend building him. Up next, for our curse upgrade, in the event that you're not using Anubis or for a different reason you might want to use this guy. White Rider increases element accuracy by 20%. After using skills on foes, increase curse damage taken by 5.3% per stack of curse. 1 turn, max 4 stacks. So a good pair with, again, Joker and Ren, of course. His skill 1 inflicts 1 to 2 curse stacks. You'd want to put something like Agility Master on him, or Tarukaja as well. Makojaman in the event that you want to use him as an element persona as well. So pretty flexible persona if you want to do curse or if you want to do ailments. A very, very good persona indeed. Same can be said with Hellbiker, though he's more of a Joker DPS persona. Ignition, increase fire damage to burning foes by 19%. So pretty solid if you want to go for damage. His skill 1 also does more damage if the foe is burning. And if they are burning, he'll reset burn duration. So if your enemy has only one more round of burn and you use skill 1, it'll be reset back to 3. Moving on to our tier 5 personas, our 2 tanks are going to be Hecatoncheires. Hopefully I said that right. Though I wouldn't exactly build him over Mithras if you have already, but in the case that you do need a good defense increase and shield increase, he's all about that. Rumakala, on the other hand, is going to be focused more on being resistant and decreasing foes' damage, as well as your party damage received, if the foes are debuffed, of course. I would say these two aren't exactly too helpful over Mithras, but solid options nonetheless. Up next, we are going to have Urlunger, a solid persona if you are using a electric team. He increases crit damage by 17.4%, increases foe's crit damage taken by 16%. If foe is shocked, increased by 10% more. The electric break also is somewhat useful in certain cases. Do note that as long as you have him out as Wanda's currently used persona, his passive will be constantly applied, so no need to, for example, use any skills to apply this passive. You would only want to apply this shock if your allies don't apply the shock to get the extra 10% more. And also don't forget that anything revolving crit is very, very valuable. So again, you could optimize him with other stuff like lower defense or giving more crit to your team or anything like that, because you basically want him out on the field, so his passive's constantly running. So the more skills you have to fill the gaps of what you need, the better he'll be. Of course, there is a little bit of a caveat to this, to where you don't want one persona to be doing everything just because you want him on the field, because other personas might be better at buffing a certain stat better than some other persona, right? So keep that in mind. Next up, in the event that we get anything related to spiritual ailments, resistance and stuff like that, where our enemies are using a lot of this and we need resistance, Kumbanda is going to be a very good persona since he increases the resistance by 60%. So I thought I'd just point him out just in case we do get something like that, which I very much hope we do, just to make more persona more useful. Up next, for our succubus replacement, we have Dakini, though once you unlock her, she does allow you to pass rebellion onto other persona, so you wouldn't exactly be using her too much, since she doesn't really do that much. Permanently increases target's physical damage by 5.7% if they have a spiritual ailment. She does come with Bad Beat, which has the spear, which is pretty cool. You don't really see a lot of the spear, but yeah, besides that, you'd rather just use Rebellion and pass it on to another persona, but a worthy mention nonetheless. Up next, for our curse upgrade, we have Pazuzu. Increases attack by 17.7%. When using a skill to attack a foe, 40% chance to inflict one curse on the main target. So again, depending on who you're targeting, immediately deal curse damage as well. So deal curse damage to all foes equal to 58% of attack, chance to inflict one curse attack on foes. So main target would be 40% chance, with the curse boost will go up to 48. So of course a very, very solid persona in terms of both damage and curse utility. Up next we have Kushinada. I thought I'd just mention because she's pretty cool looking and her passive skill is pretty interesting. For every buff gained, increase party's attack by 6.7%, max 3 stacks, and it's permanent. So again, something like a long fight, she'll become more and more useful. I also just want to point out that her passive, this does not proc with stuff like Automataru. So I did try to see if this works and it does not. Also, to get these 3 stacks, it cannot be your allies that are buffing you or themselves. It has to be Kushinada herself who is putting the buffs on to get one of these stacks. So that is something to consider and kind of sucks, but maybe you can find a better use for her. And up next, we have the man himself, Komokuten. A very, very, very good persona. At the start of battle, increases attack of an ally with the highest attack by 10% and crit rate by 4%. Paired with something like Revolution, which increases the party's critical rate. These two will stack. You also get something like Automataro on him, which will be very good. Agility Master instead of the skill that it comes with, which lowers your speed. Tarukaja, so you just want to use him as pretty much a buff stick, and he'll serve you very, very well. If you're curious which is the ally that will get the buff, you can see this from the stats on each of your characters. For our healer, we're gonna have Sarasvati, pretty solid I'd say. Increases healing by 50%. After healing, heal ally with the lowest HP by 24% of the user's attack. Her skill 1 is also pretty good if I remember. Restores party HP equal to 17.3% of attack plus decreases party damage taken. Yeah, the damage taken reduction, pretty... I mean, all the extra things you can get from just one skill is always a good bonus. Up next, if you want a physical damage or a critting wonder, Byakko will do pretty good. Increases crit rate by 12.5%. At the end of the turn, gain Fighting Spirit, increases attack by 10%, max 6 stacks. So if the boss is not dying, you'll get 60% attack up. After defeating a foe, gain 2 Fighting Spirit. So even if you're in a 3 enemy battle, he could be pretty useful. You also do get him for free. So up next, we have Power, which I do not have yet, but increases attack by 14.5%, increases blast damage by 32% to foes below 50% HP. When only one foe, increases effect by 50%. So big boss killing unit, does get the blessing stacks which restores HP. So a very solid bossing unit. Skathach or Skathach is our next wind unit. Increase attack by 14.5%, increases wind damage to foes with debuffs. If windswept, increased by 25%. And of course, she does apply windswept herself, and she is a cool looking persona, which is what really matters, right? Up next for our curse debuffer, we have Rangda. When dealing curse damage, decrease main target's attack by 16%. Again, main target. So make sure you are selecting who you want to lower attack. She also comes with Matarunda, which is very, very solid. Up next, I am going to point out Queen Mab just because I like the idea of her kit very much. So increases attack by 70.7 when using skill to attack a burning foe or a frozen foe. Increases attack by 20% if foe is burning and frozen. Increases effect by 100%. So a pretty cool duo ice and fire team set up here. I like the idea behind this. I wish this kind of stuff was more useful. Maybe there's a Velvet trial stage that should be really, really good. But besides that, yeah, not very useful, I guess, because you don't really want to be splitting too much of your attention across different stuff. But up next for our AoE dealing Bless unit, we have Horus. Increases attack by 17.7%. For each foe, increase blessed skill damage by 7.6%, max 5 stacks. So a very good persona if you need AoE blessed damage. Same thing could be said about Okoninushi. Increase crit rate. When using skills, increase foes' side damage taken. 3 turns, max 3 stacks. So pretty good passive right there for side team. Also, of course, the side skills usually have a spiritual ailment thingy to them, which will do increased damage or technical damage. So pretty solid persona. Again, he is locked behind a rope, so you keep that in mind. Up next, we have Butt Cheeks. And all Narcissus over here is a pretty good persona, I'd say. Increases ailment accuracy. After inflicting windswept, increase main target's damage taken by 17.6%. So on top of the 12% defense reduction. And increase own ailment accuracy by 14% for 2 turns. So of course, it's a very good persona if you like the ailments and if you like wind. Other than that, you won't find too much usage for him. And now moving on to our tier 6 persona. We have Surt, of course, a very, very good fire persona. Increases ailment accuracy, increases burn accuracy by 35%. If foe's HP is 50% or more, increase effect by 30%. So solid. Burn applying persona. He also has the defense down on all enemies, which is very, very good. And yeah, basically the staple persona for a fire team. Up next, I thought I'd just mention Skadi. For the ailment stuff. After inflicting debuffs, increase attack by 17% and crit rate by 4.5%. If it's a spiritual ailment, increase ailment accuracy by 35%. So if you're using something like Dizzy, you'll get it a lot more frequent over something like an Ice debuff. She also has Wage War, which is pretty solid. Up next for our healer, we have Parvati. Parvati will increase our HP by 21%. After healing, increase target's attack by 11% and defense by 7.5% for 1 turn. So again, the more extra things you can get with whatever you're doing, the better. So you'll be healing and also getting all these buffs. So very, very good. Up next, if you find yourself needing a little bit more curse damage on Wander, Black Rider increases attack by 21%. When using a skill, increase attack by 10% for each foe with curse. Max 5, so a good AoE'd curse persona for Wander. It also comes with the Almighty damage, which ignores defense, so good little bonus, I guess. But for the most part, ideally you wouldn't be using this persona, just I guess if you don't have Joker or anything like that. Up next, we have Seth for our gun damage and critical damage. Increases crit damage by 30% basically. After knocking down a foe, increase own attack by 31%, 2 turns. Increases party damage by 8% for 1 turn. So pretty solid persona. In the mostly I guess you use this for Battle Trials. His skill 1, deal gun damage to one foe equal to 135% of attack. On a critical hit, remove 1 more down point. I believe this is the shield. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what this is. But yeah, pretty solid persona nonetheless. Speaking of solid, up next we have Norn. A very, very, very good persona. Increases defense by 37%. After inflicting Windswept, decrease target's defense by 22% for 2 turns. So very, very good. His skill 1 grants a shield, and also when allies take damage, 31% chance to inflict Windswept on the attacker. So not only are you getting like double value from his passive, increasing your defense while decreasing your enemy's defense, his skill 1 is also doing something similar, right? So very, very, very good persona. Even if you're not on a win team, I should point out, even if you're not on a win team, he's a very good persona to have. Up next, we have Titania. Another very, very good persona, I'd say, or at least very interesting persona. Increases healing by 18%. When healing with a skill, 55% chance to inflict 1 random ailment. So you're basically gambling with ailments, which sounds pretty cool to me. Skill 1 restores party's HP equal to 16% of attack. If an ally's HP is below 50%, increases the healing and restores some SP. So good for, I guess, hard rail, or in the event that they bring something that SP recovery is good. She also, for whatever reason, comes with concentrate, which I would remove this even and put some defensive options or more healing options or something else, just because I don't think you're doing a lot of damage with this at all, especially since your passive doesn't help with damage at all. So just don't even try that. Up next, we have Baphomet, another solid choice for the fire if you don't like Cert. Increases attack by 25%. After dealing skill damage to a burning foe, increases all foes' fire damage taken by 20%. Pretty solid. Of course, you'd want to compare between him and Cert, which whatever suits your playstyle best or your team best. Up next, we have Malch is a dick. I'm just going to go with that. Increases attack by 25%. When using skills, increase bless damage by 3% per blessing on a party, up to 8 blessings for 2 turns. So pretty good. I assume you get a lot of bless stacks. We could also pair this with Marion, for example. Deal bless damage to all foes equal to 71% of attack. Grant user stacks for each blessing on a user. Increase skill damage by 5% up to 25%. So you're getting a lot of damage buffs with all these blessing stacks. So very solid persona. And up next we have our rank 7 persona. Obviously Dionysus is going to be the main focus here and the first persona you want to get. Increases crit rate by 14.8%. After using a skill on an ally, increases main target's crit damage by 22%. He comes with Revolution, and of course you're going to want to pair him with stuff like the Tarokaja, Rebellion, Rakukaja, anything you can get to make him basically a buffing stick as well. Up next for our healer, we have Seiryu. Not much to say about the healers, of course. Increases healing by 17.8%. After healing with a skill, increases target's ailment accuracy and ailment resistance. So again, if we ever need the ailment accuracy stuff or resistance stuff, he'll probably be the better healer. Until then, some of the previous persona will serve you better. Same with Nebiros. Increases element resistance, decreases SP cost, so Heart Rail could be a good mode for this, but it really isn't. He also has the Debilitate, which I think is a really cool skill, and just the persona in general. I mean, the idea behind all this stuff is pretty cool, but unfortunately not very useful. Up next we have Oberon. Increases crit rate 14.8% when only one foe, increases electric damage by 26% and crit rate by 10%. When the foe has a debuff, increases effect by 25%. So very good electric persona. Of course, he applies the shock. He also comes with concentrate, just in case you need a little bit extra damage. Otherwise, you can of course switch these things around and make it more useful for your team. But a very good passive here. Up next we have Thor. Thor increases crit damage by 35% when allies use electric skills, Resonance, or Highlights. Resonance, if you don't know, is basically Morgana's healing passive thingy, or any follow-ups. I think Joker's extra turn also counts as a Resonance, that kind of stuff. Gain 1 Thunder Lord's Majesty, max 3 stacks for 1 turn. After dealing electric damage, and Thunder Lord's Majesty is at 3 stacks, increases all foes' electric damage taken by 8% and crit damage taken by 12%. So you want to get these stacks up and then go boom. So compared to Oberon, for example, you could use Thor in a more general sense, while Oberon would be better used for single targets. Up next, we have the Snake. Increases crit rate by 17.5%. When using a unique skill with 3 Sacrificial Screams, spend 3 stacks and inflict freeze on all foes for 3 turns. Pretty solid. Increases all foes' technical damage taken by 18%. So probably a better persona later on when technical characters like Chinese New Year Yao Ling and Moto, or whatever her name is, the Ice Lady. Until then, you can use it, I guess, for ice damage, mostly for ice DPS. Up next we have Bishamonten, another solid nuke persona. Increase crit damage by 17.5% when using a skill on a foe. Increase main target's nuke damage taken by 8% per elemental ailment. So max 3 stacks 1 turn. Skill 1, if the foe has an elemental ailment, it also increases damage by 25%. So interesting thing to point out, especially paired with Titania, if you want to run a mono team but also have ways of applying other elemental elements. I don't know. It seems like there could be some interesting stuff going on there. Up next we do have Dominion, a very good persona. Increases attack by 30% when using a skill on ally. Gain 2 commandment. When allies deal skill damage, spend 1 commandment to increase that skill's damage by 13.5%. Very good passive. Also has Cohesion, which increases the party's attack. Very good. Again, it also has the main target, so always be sure to be reading your skills and your passives to see if there's any main target stuff going on there. And of course, adding stuff like the Tarukaja or Rebellion will also be a very good idea. Up next we have Belial or Belial. Increases ailment accuracy when foes take continuous damage, inflicts Hell's Inferno, which I think this is a upgraded burn, basically. Dealing 7% attack damage as dealing 7% attack as damage each turn, max 3 stacks and for 2 turns. So an interesting dot damage persona if you want to pair him with, I guess you could pair him with On as well as ideally it'd be Joker and Rin, but I guess the On burning effect combo could also work out well. And last but not least, we have our tier 8 persona, and obviously these two are going to be very good. Koryu increases attack by 30%, activate even in reserve, so it doesn't have to be your active persona. Each time an ally deals damage of a different attribute, gain 1 for gods, max 4 stacks. At 4 stacks, at the start of user's action, spend all stacks to gain 4 gods power. And 4 gods power increases user's attack by 20%, increases other allies' attack by 10%, and changes Koryu's skills. I'm not sure what the skill change is. I've never used this persona. But just this passive alone, I mean, the buffs that you're getting is super good. And then of course we have Alice, our go-to curse persona, mainly for Die For Me, increases all foes' curse damage taken by 15%, increases by 1.8% more for every 30% of the user's ailment accuracy. So again, Another persona that likes element accuracy. Though specifically for Velvet Trials, the insta-kill is kinda not too good. But yeah, a very, very, very good persona nonetheless. She does increase element accuracy, increases force damage taken by 12%. So again, another increase of curse damage taken. When an ally uses a curse skill, increases allies' element accuracy and attack by 9.1%, max 3 stacks. So super, super, super OP persona. And as for Wonder's main persona, usually when it comes to gacha games, the free stuff that they give you is usually trash. Thankfully, Janosik is not trash. He's actually a very, very good persona. So increases attack by 20% at the start of battle, inflict marked on one foe. He has to be your initial equipped persona for this to apply. When an ally attacks the marked foe, increases attack by 20%. And then if Wander himself attacks a foe with the mark, he'll do increased gun damage. Not very important this part. What is important is knowing that the mark decreases defense by 24.3, and it can also be procced. So if you didn't take him initially, because you want to take something like Komokuten or something like that, using Rakunda on the foe will also have a chance to proc the mark. So having Rakunda for the extra defense on top of the mark is a super, super good combo. Besides that, Janosik is obviously used throughout the entire game. He's very useful early on for DPS, and he's very useful late game, as you can see with the Recruiter, for example, to help with buffs and debuffs. So very, very, very good persona. Do not sleep on him. And yeah, that's going to be it for this guide. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next video. See ya.